Hi everyone, I'm Any New Province, and this week we're playing Boros Tokens for Net Benefits, the series where we explore the benefits of net decking in Pauper. I am so excited to share this week's deck list with you because PauperGanda's own Deluxekoff took it to a third place finish in the Magic Online Pauper Challenge this weekend. I'm sure if you're here watching my Pauper videos, then you're well aware of who Deluxekoff is, but just in case you're not, I've linked PauperGanda's Pauper Content YouTube channel in the description down below. Make sure you check them out. Congratulations on your finish, Deluxekoff. I can't wait to try out this awesome Boros tokens list that you did so well with. Boros tokens is a popular Pauper archetype. Usually the lists look quite similar to Boros Monarch, but lean a little bit heavier on the aggressive side. While this deck does include a lot of staples that you'd expect to see in a Boros tokens list in Pauper, I'm not surprised to see that Deluxekoff has included a lot of sweet graveyard and go wide strategies. After all, Deluxekoff is known for his sweet brews. Because this is a tokens deck, I'm going to start the deck tech off by going over our major token producers, starting off with Battle Screech. Battle Screech costs 2 white for a sorcery and creates 2 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying, but the most powerful thing about Battle Screech is its flashback ability. You can cast it again from your graveyard by tapping 3 untapped white creatures you control. Battle Screech is an amazing card for flooding the battlefield with attackers that have evasion, so your opponent might have trouble dealing with them. This deck is also running 4 copies, which is more than most, but I'll be super happy if I resolve all 4. We've also got 4 copies of Raise the Alarm, which cost 1 and a white for an instant that creates 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. It's awesome to have a token producer that you can leave up on turn 2 to cast on your opponent's end step so that maybe you can untap and keep being productive if they choose to counter your Raise the Alarm. While this is a token-based strategy, Deluxekoff has included some other threats that go along very well with our token-producing spells. The first of those alternative threats is Seeker of the Way. Seeker of the Way costs 1 and a white for a 2/2 human warrior with prowess, which means whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Seeker of the Way gets +1/+1 until end of turn, but that's not all. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Seeker of the Way also gains lifelink until end of turn. I'm always happy to have some extra life points coming my way from Seeker of the Way's lifelink ability, and anyone who's played with this card in Pauper knows that its prowess ability makes it into a true threat. Next up is Squadron Hawk, one of the best white creatures for generating card advantage in a go-wide strategy. It costs 1 and a white for a 1/1 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for up to 3 cards named Squadron Hawk, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Because we'll be pecking away at our opponent's life total for the entire game, a couple of evasive Squadron Hawks may be able to close things out on their own. Also, it's great that they search your library for enough bodies to flash back those Battle Screeches out of your graveyard if your opponent has managed to deal with all of your other white creatures. Our last creature is Sacred Cat. It costs 1 white mana for a 1/1 with lifelink, and it has the Embalm ability, which means you can pay 1 white, exile Sacred Cat from your graveyard, and create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie cat with no mana cost, Embalm only as a sorcery. This is another great lifelink creature that we can recur from our graveyard. It gives us an extra body, and it gives us some extra life points for surviving in those burn or ultra aggressive matchups. Most Pauper players know that it's really difficult to win a game with exclusively 1/1 bodies, and for that reason we're going to fortify them with Rally the Peasants, which costs 2 and a white for an instant that gives creatures you control +2/+0 until end of turn. An early anthem can close out the game if we've managed to assemble any kind of board state, but Rally the Peasants can close out the game even if we only have a few creatures. That's because sometimes you can cast it twice off the top of your deck because of its flashback ability, which means you can pay 2 and a red to cast Rally the Peasants again out of your graveyard. I mentioned some of the sweet graveyard strategies happening in this deck, and a lot of them exist within this cool card filtering package. It goes along awesome with Battle Screech and Sacred Cat and Rally the Peasants. Our first piece of card filtering is Tormenting Voice, which costs 1 and a red for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Tormenting Voice, you have to discard a card, but then you get to draw 2 cards. I'm sure the single copy of Tormenting Voice is included because Deluxe would have loved to run a 5th copy of this next spell, which is Faithless Looting. It costs 1 red for a sorcery that allows you to draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. You can flashback this card like your Battle Screech and Rally the Peasants out of your graveyard by paying 2 and a red. Finally, this deck has a very tight interaction package, a lot of removal spells that can double as burn if we have our opponent at a precariously low life total. Our first interactive spell is another bit of sweet graveyard synergy in Firebolt. It costs 1 red mana for a sorcery to deal 2 damage to any target, and you can flash this back like a lot of other spells in this deck for 4 and a red. I'm a huge fan of Firebolt. You do sacrifice a little bit where it's sorcery speed, but I think it's one of the most consistent ways for you to 2-for-1 decks like Mono Green Stompy and Mono Blue Delver, decks that you're almost definitely going to run into. We're also playing 4 copies of Lightning Bolt. This card needs no introduction. It costs 1 red mana and deals 3 damage to any target. You know just how good it is. Finally, we have one of the best tools a white deck can use to defend itself from mono-colored aggressors in Prismatic Strands. It costs 2 and a white for an instant that prevents all damage that sources of the color of your choice would deal this turn. You can also flash it back by tapping an untapped white creature you control. Don't worry, we'll almost always have one of those on board. There are so many dimensions to Prismatic Strands. Not only can it serve as a fog before a critical turn where you attack for lethal, but it can also allow you to attack into boards where you typically lose a lot of creatures. You stop your opponent's colored creatures from dealing damage to your creatures, maybe you trade a couple off and sneak through damage, and then represent another fog out of your graveyard. This card is nuts. Alright, let's have a look at this mana base. Our non-basics are 2 copies of Ash Barrens for going into your deck and searching up those basics, 3 copies of Boros Garrisons, your red-white Karus, and 4 copies of Windscarred Crag for gaining us a little bit of life and fixing our mana. While we are a little heavy on non-basic tapped lands, we do want to hit our second land drop untapped on time to raise the alarm, cast a Seeker of the Way, or start Squadron Hawking our opponent. That's why we have 6 untapped basic mountains and 6 basic plains. Alright, let's have a look at this sideboard. First, we have 3 copies of Blazing Volley as the least expensive way to wipe the board of opposing 1/1s. We have 3 copies of Luma Threadfield to bring in against our opponent's Electrickery and Shrivel effects. We have 2 copies of Standard Bearer for picking up all of our opponent's auras and pump spells. We have 1 copy of Aura Fractures for blowing up all of our opponent's enchantments. We have 2 copies of Guardian of the Guild Pack for fogging all of our opponent's targeted monocolor removal, and we have 4 copies of Relic of Progenitus for making sure our opponent's graveyards don't stay intact for the rest of the game. And there you have it, Boros tokens by Deluxekoff. Congratulations again on your finish in the challenge, Deluxekoff. You definitely deserve it. We're taking this deck into a league at twitch.tv/AnyNewProvince. We're there every Monday night playing competitive Pauper decks. Before I go, I just want to remind you that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know that you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and hopefully I'll see you on Monday night.